I think 3 women who were pregnant went into labor that evening. This is a quote from BAFTA-winning horror writer Stephen Volk, discussing perhaps his most infamous work, Ghostwatch. A BBC special released in 1992 that resulted in a quantifiable percentage of the British public watching at home believing that the spirit of a child-molesting ghost had flown out of their TV and into their toilet. That's a hell of a sentence, and one that requires a not insignificant amount of explanation to make sense. So settle in as we tell you the story of how one of the most infamous moments in British television history came to be. Firstly, it's important to note that while Ghostwatch was never marketed as anything other than a work of fiction, the efforts the BBC went to clarify this fact left a lot to be desired. For starters, literally the first thing anybody would see before the programme started proper were the name of the writer, the aforementioned Stephen Volk, and the banner for the BBC's, at the time, flagship anthology drama series, Screen 1. Both of which were added reportedly moments before the show was set to air, specifically to clarify to viewers that the whole thing was fake. Apparently, Volk wasn't too happy with this decision, as he believed the British public would realise the events of the show were a work of finely crafted fiction, stating in a later interview, quote, "I was, I guess, writing for myself, aged between 12 and 14, and I thought of myself watching and thinking, well, this is interesting. I don't believe it." Which sounds reasonable, until you remember that this was a show airing in the early 1990s, so to anybody tuning in to watch who happened to miss the literal first 30 seconds of the programme, all they saw were a bunch of spooky goings-on purported to be real, airing on the BBC, a highly respected broadcaster not exactly known for playing practical jokes on its viewers, at least not on days beside April 1st. Briefly talking about that, over the years the BBC has aired several joke segments on April 1st, which it similarly purported to be real. These include, but are not limited to, a news report from London Zoo about the acquisition of a rare creature from the Himalayas called the Lurpaloof, an anagram of April Fools, noteworthy for taking massive purple dumps, and a panorama segment about Switzerland's annual spaghetti harvest, which claimed spaghetti grows on trees on 3-mile-long farms. But in any event, compounding this was the fact that this began airing at 9:25 p.m. on BBC One, an uncommon time slot generally used only by the BBC at the time due to the fact that, as a rule, the BBC doesn't and in fact can't run ads against its content. The BBC is publicly funded, so doesn't need to for anyone who's curious. This meant that for channel hoppers not wanting to watch the fare being offered on the other terrestrial channels available, which at the time was limited to BBC Two, ITV and the appropriately named Channel 4, they probably missed the only couple of seconds in the 91-minute broadcast that clarified it was fiction.